Hello, I'm Chris Carriaga, and today I'm going to be talking about a very interesting SIGGRAPH 2017 paper entitled Playful Palette, an interactive parametric color mixer for artists. The paper is by Maria Shugrina from University of Toronto and Adobe, Jingwan Lu and Stephen Diverdi, also both from Adobe. So before we talk about the technical details of this paper, we should sort of introduce the problem and motivation behind what the authors are trying to do here. So as the prevalence of digital art grows, so does the available software. With each of these programs comes a whole suite of advanced tools to aid in artists, artistic expression and freedom and exploration and all of that. So one portion of these programs has been ostensibly neglected, and that's the color picker interface. Most programs opt for a simple HSV color picker. For example, you can see this is from Apple's OS X. While plenty of work has been done to develop things like perceptually consistent color spaces and automatic color palette generation, no single interface has really emerged. The authors of this paper take inspiration from the process of mixing paint or physical media in the real world. They're not the first to try to simulate this, but unlike other works, they're the first to incorporate the positive points of real-world paint mixing with the great things from digital art like non-destructive editing and infinite history. So in order to more formally assess the needs of digital artists and the practices of traditional artists, the authors decided to begin with a pilot study consisting of 12 people. So there was 4 professional traditional artists, 4 professional digital artists, and 4 amateurs who are interested in art. All 12 participants were asked to do the same 2 tasks. They were supposed to paint a certain piece using their media of choice, and then paint the same piece using an iPad, an Apple Pencil, and Adobe Sketch. The artists were each given 15 minutes to create each of their works, and they were asked to verbalize their process as it pertains to choosing and working with colors, and the relevant pros and cons of each of the interfaces that they had to use. Here's an example of what came out of one of the participants. As you can see, there's the painting they made with their physical media. It looks like acrylic. The digital painting they created with the iPad, and then the palette that they used with the acrylic paints, and then the color palette they sort of developed using the HSV picker in Adobe Sketch. It was clear from the participant feedback that the artists really enjoyed the creative process of mixing physical paints on a physical palette, and this enjoyment was sort of lost in the digital setting. After the study, the authors came up with 5 requirements. One of them, obviously, being able to select colors, being able to blend colors to come up with new compatible colors, being able to explore colors rapidly, being able to index previously used colors, which is something that's hard even on a physical palette, and being able to organize color gamuts to plan out your artwork. As you can see from this graphic, no other interface really covers all of these facets. Rather than dive into the technical details and mathematical formalisms of their proposed interface, I think the most illustrative way to see their interface is just with an actual demo. So I'll pass it over to Chris with a demonstration. Thanks, Chris. Great presentation so far. I'll be showing a simplified version of the Playful Palette. This is just one portion. It's the area where you can select and mix colors together to create what's called a dish. And the Playful Palette actually consists of multiple dishes, so I'll only be showing just a portion of the interface here. This implementation is made by someone unaffiliated with the authors. The authors haven't released a publicly available version of the Playful Palette. You can find the link to this specific JavaScript implementation in the description. So what we can do is here we can double click, and this will bring up this color selector. This is like what we talked about, an HSV type of color picker that the Playful Palette actually builds off of. So say we want to select some red color. That'll give us this little circle right here that we can move around. Now we can make it larger or smaller if we wanted to, and then we can add another one. And maybe we want to just add like a total white one of the same hue. Can add that, and as you can see, they blend together depending on their proximity to each other. So you can get these interesting shapes And then we could select maybe a weirder color, maybe like a green. And then once you're satisfied with these set of colors that you've laid out on your dish, you can go in and select a color. So here we can kind of move throughout this little space. This sort of carves out a manifold in RGB space, and we can get different color combinations. Here we have this nice ugly brown between our sort of complementary colors of green and red. So once you select your color, you could then go paint, which this interface doesn't have, but you could see how it might be nice to sort of move around with these, experiment with adding weird colors together, and quickly be able to come up with these different configurations for interesting color combinations. And now back to Chris for the rest of the presentation. Thanks, Chris, for that awesome demonstration. One thing that we couldn't see in the demo that comes from the sort of cool digital aspect of this palette is the ability to have a palette and color history. So what the authors have set up is, as you create these dishes and as you change dishes, if a dish changes sufficiently, so for example, a certain color can't be expressed anymore, like if we look at this dish D1, when this green is removed, a snapshot gets saved, and D2 is created. And again, D2, the brown is removed and replaced by another color, and a new palette gets created. You could see how these sort of tree-like structures develop as you change the dishes in your palette. So one cool feature that this enables is this color history. What we can do is organize all the colors in a painting by hue around this circle, as we can see on the left. And when you click on a given color, it will pull up the dish that was used to create that color. Alternatively, the users can click on a certain stroke or a certain area of their painting, and it will pull up the corresponding dish that color came from again. So what this enables is a really easy and automatic way to recolor. What the user can do is go through, once they're all the way done with their painting, and put the Playful Palette interface into recoloring mode. So in this case, when they select a color from their painting, the dish will be pulled up, but none of the circles on the dish can be moved around. The only thing that can be changed is the color of each of those circles. So you could see how any colors in the image, you can get their corresponding dish, change the color of a circle, and then query the position that color came from on the dish and recolor the image using that new color from the altered dish. To evaluate the efficacy of their proposed approach, the authors perform another user study. This time, they got 8 professional digital artists, 4 professional traditional artists, and then 2 amateur artists that are practicing painting. So this task had 2 parts. They were given an underdrawing of some piece of art, and they were asked to create a painting following the underdrawing using just the HSV color picker, and then another one using the HSV color picker and the Playful Palette. And the order in which they did these was randomized for each person. The authors measured quantitatively and qualitatively the results of this study and found that quantitatively, people interacted with the color picker interface a lot more in the Playful Palette setting than with just the HSV picker alone. And additionally, that when using the Playful Palette, artists used a lot more colors than when only using the HSV color picker alone. Qualitatively, they evaluated using a Likert scale questionnaire whether or not the requirements that they laid out before were important or relevant to artists, and additionally, if those requirements were fulfilled with each one of the interfaces. In summary, the authors of this paper were able to create an effective and enjoyable digital interface that combines the creative process of mixing paint in real life with the exploration that is inherent in digital interfaces. The big takeaway from this paper is the idea of investigating long-standing and well-established interfaces such as the HSV picker and asking how they can be improved. Just because something is the commonly used solution doesn't mean it's the best solution.